Good morning. Welcome to the NAMI New Jersey webinar series. My name is Lynn Malloy, and I'm the Director of NAMI New Jersey Family Programs. We have partnered with our local NAMI Sussex affiliate to offer you today's webinar. NAMI Sussex envisions a community where those impacted by mental illness obtain the help, support, and hope they require to achieve resilience, recovery, and wellness. They provide local support, including online family support groups and support groups for veterans, police, and first responders dealing with post-traumatic stress resulting from their service, as well as many other educational sessions like this one. Today's webinar is Too Much Stuff. People who have a tendency to hoard can accumulate so much stuff it overwhelms their lives, and family members and friends often do more harm than good in their attempts to help. Our presenter will discuss common beliefs around hoarding disorders, best practices to support someone with a disorder, and the financial and emotional costs to persons with a tendency to hoard, their families, and also to the community. She will provide evidence-based tools to assess the risk for hoarding disorder, as well as a case study practice for gaining entry into a home with too much stuff. She will also stress the need for a paradigm switch of language about hoarding disorder. I'd like to introduce our presenter, Laverne Williams. She is the director of the Promoting Emotional Wellness and Spirituality Program for the Mental Health Association in New Jersey, better known as P.E.W.S. Ms. Williams is a certified social worker, a RAP facilitator, a mental health first aid instructor, a certified grief recovery specialist, Buried in Treasures workshop facilitator, and the owner-operator of the Laverne Williams enterprise consulting firm, which provides individually designed health and wellness workshops. With over 36 years of experience in mental health service, Ms. Williams is a highly sought-after conference keynote and workshop facilitator. Her efforts to influence change in how communities, especially communities of color, view and treat mental illness have been presented to numerous statewide and local agencies, consumer organizations, and family member groups. We are so honored she's presenting today on this important topic that's surrounded by so much stigma. It is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, NAMI, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here and to share and impart some information that hopefully will be helpful to you and to perhaps those of your loved ones who may be struggling with too much stuff. Okay, we shall begin. So who are we? I just wanted to share with you that we are a go-to number as endorsed by Governor Murphy, so that during the COVID-19 pandemic, your mental health is absolutely vital. We have free emotional support from trained staff who are multicultural, and by calling 866-202-4357, or you may text New Jersey Hope to 51684. We are open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Did I say it was free? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is. It's also private. It's for persons 14 and older. We have a live chat. We have live texting, and we also have crisis counseling available if you or someone you know needs some more help. We also have New Jersey Mental Health Cares. So if you're concerned about your mental health or the health of someone you love, New Jersey Mental Health Cares can help. The free helpline offers telephone counseling, the same number, 866-202-4357. Again, we are open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Mental Health Association New Jersey, I just wanted you to know who we are and how we stand on racism. The Mental Health Association in New Jersey understands that racism undermines mental health. Therefore, we are committed to anti-racism in all that we do. And that means that we pledge to work against individual racism, interpersonal racism, and institutional racisms in all their forms. I just want to take a moment to make sure that everyone is seeing the screen correctly. I'm hoping that everyone I'm sharing, so I'm hoping that everyone is viewing what I am talking about.
Yes, we're good, Laverne.
Okay, I will keep going. Thank you so much. So, what is a hoarding disorder? I'm so very glad you asked that important question, especially for today. The question is there a large accumulation of possessions regardless of their value? Are there rooms that cannot be used for their intended purpose due to the volume of your possessions? Has anyone experiencing distress or impairment in functioning because of the clutter? Well, if you said yes to all three questions, then it's reasonable to conclude that there are hoarding related concerns that should be addressed. I'd like to also add that in terms of the Mental Health Association's the disorder, it is now listed, for those of you who may or may not know, it is now listed separately in the DSM-IV. It used to be classified with OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, and now it is in this separate category. So it is in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. So I want to give you three of the primary characteristics of hoarding: compulsive acquisition, saving behavior or difficulty discarding possessions, or disorganization in many areas of life, but that mainly manifests in extensive clutter. Determining the different types of hoarding that are going on in a particular situation is key in the successful recovery effort. So some of those are perhaps food, sometimes animals, it could be waste, it could be bodily fluids. So while cluttering and hoarding may differ, taking the first steps to reclaiming a home is the same. Finding the right hoarding cleaning service is also essential to the project and to living a healthy, clean life. So some of the reasons for hoarding, they are that items are perceived as valuable, items provide a sense of security, sometimes fear of forgetting or losing items. Oftentimes you might say, well, why wouldn't somebody just put things in a closet, or why wouldn't they put them in a file cabinet? Oftentimes people have expressed that if they can't see them, then they're afraid they'll forget it. Sometimes constant need to collect and keep things, obtaining love not found from people, fear others will obtain their personal information. That's why oftentimes people will not throw things away. Physical limitations and frailty. Sometimes people are not able to clean up. There's also self-neglect, and it can also be due to stressful life events. I want to go over some of the beliefs around hoarding disorder. In other words, we sometimes call finding and keeping. Some folks have expressed, I can't bear the thought of making the wrong decision. If I throw something out, I might need it later. I better save this because I will probably need it at some point. If this possession may be of use to someone else, I am responsible for saving it for him or her. Throwing away this possession is like throwing away a part of me. I like to maintain the sole control over my things. And it also upsets me when someone throws something of mine away without my permission. And this is this information is by Tolan Frost and Steketee, who wrote a book in 2014 entitled Buried and Treasured. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. Now, here are some of the feelings associated with those who clutter or tend to hoard: anxiety, boredom, sometimes persons are distracted, fatigue, grief, hopelessness, resistance, anger, rage, hostility, and also sorrow. What are some of the negative aspects of persons who tend to hoard? They experience a high degree of shame and embarrassment. They absolutely know that there's something isn't normal. Sometimes persons are overwhelmed. They don't know where or how to start to think this through. Sometimes they feel out of control. And often they ask themselves, am I crazy or not? There's fear of being found out. Persons live in dread that a repair person or a paramedic may come. And sometimes they can't seem to initiate organizational behaviors. I want you to feel free to, if you have questions as I go along, Lynn will be monitoring, others will be monitoring the chat. So if you have something, it really is okay to just put something in the chat and I will answer questions as we go along. But again, we will have time for Q&A after the presentation is done with. So sometimes persons who tend to hoard perceive professional helpers as this. That at best, they're nice, but they're not very helpful. They feel that they are very judgmental, arrogant, pushy, impatient, and hasty. They are not understanding, they're disrespectful, they're invasive, they sometimes are threatening or bullying and overly serious or way too serious. So if you ever question why would someone not want to have someone help them, this is how they perceive professional helpers. So just keep that in mind. Just want to give you a little information about squalor. What is it? It's degradation from neglect or filth. So some examples could be rotting food, human or animal waste, infestation, mold or health hazards, and then cluttered living can exist with or without poor sanitation. So I just wanted to make that clear distinction. What are some of the community impacts? There are many. Well, there's safety concerns, the risk of inaccessibility to the home, the risk of an avalanche due to a collapse of piles of things, exits that are obstructed, collapsing floors, faulty electricity. Other things, it's a financial burden. Professional cleanup services are costly. Removal or evictive costs are expensive as well. Then there are clean out costs, and there's also cost to neighbors, friends, and family. Some of the personal health effects, infestations, it can cause respiratory issues, fall hazards, the inability to locate important items sometimes, such as medication, and then the inability to prepare healthy food. I just want to say that financial burdens, when we're talking about cleanouts in which items are removed from the home with little to no input from the resident, it can really cost cities and towns more than $10,000. And despite being the first line of intervention for many communities, there is little evidence to show that these cleanouts are effective. So while this approach may result in short-term safety gains, it does nothing to address the complex issues underlying the hoarding behavior. And so we need to make sure, again, that the person involved is included. Oftentimes people will go into the home without the person, and it's more devastating if that person does not have a say in what should or should not be kept. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. And then also the personal health effects, the respiratory problems are common in people living with too much stuff. Decaying conditions of the home can lead to infestation, lack of sanitation, mobility, and the maintenance reduces the quality of life of a hoarder. Using living quarters, unsafe living quarters make hoarders, especially elderly persons who tend to hoard, vulnerable to slips and injuries. So there are many, many reasons how and why a community is impacted. Lynn, I'm not sure if you want to stop for a minute here, just to see if there are any questions or comments in the chat.
Yes, Laverne, there is one, and it's up to you if this is the right point to answer it. Somebody asked how do we find the right hoarding cleaning service?
I'm going to give you, yes, I will give you some information at the end of the presentation. I will mail to you, Lynn, to mail out to all the attendees a list of some services that are available local and statewide. And oftentimes, it's just like anything else. If you were going to a doctor for specific treatment, oftentimes you need to be comfortable with who you're working with. So there are many services available, and not many, but there are a lot of around, and I will not, we don't want to endorse any one company, but my suggestion would be, there's also a listing from the Division of Mental Health Services of different services available. Avail yourself of all of them, check them out and see which one is comfortable for you. So I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you. And I do have another question.
Sure.
Can you comment on an extreme hoarder with additional OCD traits, including egocentrism, who is not visibly, personally disturbed by this habit, except practically as when so many objects impede finding an item?
Okay, well, I am not a therapist, so I'm not going to try to venture to answer a question I'm not real sure of. However, it's just like any other disease. There are extremes, and every case has to be treated separately. I think perhaps looking at the video that we will be watching shortly might be able to answer that question as well.
Great, thank you.
Are we good? I can move on.
We have a lot of questions coming through.
That's okay.
Okay, great. So how to engage a hoarder to help? How do we engage a hoarder to help for an underlying condition to get help?
Okay, and we will talk about that a little bit later on that, so I don't want to give it away because then you won't be with me.
Yeah, I think you're going to talk about a lot of this going forward. So I'm going to save these questions and we'll see if you address them and we'll put them back up. Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. All right. So now we are going to watch a video and then I would welcome your comments even after that. So here we go.
What do you do? When I first started my own business, I thought I had to go to networking events, and all night long, I get asked that question, what do you do?
So sorry.
What do you do? When I first started my own business, I thought I had to go to networking events, and all night long, I get asked that question, what do you do? So I would say, I have a hoarding, clean out business, and I would have to enunciate the D, or it was mistaken for whoring. So now I tell people I work with those who are suffering from hoarding disorder, like Jim. Now, when I meet Jim, I'm standing on his front porch, and this is the sign that I'm seeing. Danger. It is a crime to occupy this building or remove the sign. The city has given him his last attempt to stay in his home, and I'm there to see if I can help. And I sit with Jim, and he starts to tell me, I don't know how I let it get this bad. I've tried so many times to clean it up, but I can't make any progress. I was going to see a therapist, but I stopped going, and I could never even tell her about the inside of my house. And actually, everything has a purpose, he tells me. It's piled high against my walls. It's helping to insulate my house. My furnace is broken, and I can't let the repairman in to fix it. I finally say, I just need to go inside. I need to get an estimate to see what the cost would be to clean it up. He says, go ahead in without me. I'm sorry for what you're about to see. Now I go in and I'm looking around. It's everything that you and I have, just a lot more of it. But then I make my way to the bathroom and I see several Ocean Spray cranberry juice bottles. But to me, it looks like they're filled with apple juice. And then I see bags and they're tied up and they're layered in buckets, and I get it. His plumbing is broken too. It's urine and it's feces. But some people see this, they think it's dirty and disgusting, but it's resourceful. I go back out, I sit with Jim, I tell him, he's crying now. I say, it's okay, we got this, we can clean this up. I said, it's not that bad. What do you mean it's not that bad? I tell him I do this every day. I've seen much worse. You're not alone, and don't feel bad. We can choose to judge Jim, or we can choose compassion. There are 15 million people in the United States that have the same disorder as Jim. It's 2 to 5% of the population. In the Denver Boulder area, it's 150,000 people. And in this room, there could be 110. There are more people with hoarding disorder than with Alzheimer's disease, but you wouldn't know it. They're hiding silently behind closed doors. With the blinds pulled down, they're afraid to come out and they're afraid to let you in. Hoarding disorder is a serious and complex mental illness. It's very difficult to treat, and there are many different factors that go into it. Genetics, learned family behavior, and studies show that there's abnormal activity in the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the place that's responsible for organizing, planning, and decision-making. 75% of those with hoarding also have a coexisting mental illness, such as depression or anxiety. They don't want to live like they do. But when you hear hoarding, what do you think? Weird, lazy, dirty, or sad? Or you wonder if you have a problem. You can't park your car in your garage. You have stuff you haven't used in years, but you might use it someday, so you don't throw it out. Or your wife has so many shoes in her closet, you think she's a hoarder. Well, just know, the definition to hoarding has 4 parts. The first one, it's an excessive accumulation of stuff. The second, extreme difficulty discarding your possessions and sometimes trash. Third, living spaces cannot be used for their intended purpose. So you can't use your stove, your kitchen table, or sit on your couch. And lastly, it causes distress and impairment. So unless you meet all 4 parts to that criteria, you're not one of the 110 persons in this room. But it impacts you anyway. Hoarding is a community problem, and whether you know it or not, it impacts you. As a community, as a taxpayer, you're part of the solution. There are cities all over the United States that are treating the symptoms of hoarding disorder, and they're publicly shaming them with signs posted on doors with threats of evictions and fines and even jail. Take one of my clients, Mary. All of these government agencies were involved in Mary's case over several years. It was the second time that a cleanup company was called in to work with Mary to help her stay in her home. And this is common because there's a 90% recidivism rate after a clean out without mental health treatment. Just because we come in and clean it out doesn't mean that the behavior goes away. So when I meet Mary, she's wearing purple sweatpants and a gray t-shirt. She comes to the door and she's a little bit feisty. She doesn't want me in there, but she knows that it has to happen. We worked together for 2 hours, and I know this is going to take some time. I tell her, we're done for the day. I'm going to come back the following Tuesday, and we'll start where we left off. I come back the following Tuesday. Mary, she has the same purple sweatpants and the same gray t-shirt. But this time, after about 30 minutes, she starts to crack a smile, and we're making progress. She's laughing. She trusts me. I tell her, Mary, I've cleaned out your shower and I put all your dirty clothes in one spot. Your homework is to take a shower and to do the laundry. So I come back in next Tuesday, and you already know Mary has the same purple sweatpants and the same shirt. And now I'm worried. So I sit with her. I tell her, Mary, what's going on? Why haven't you taken a shower? She says, I can't. It burns, it hurts. I think I have an infection, and I haven't been able to go to the doctor. And then I ask her about her laundry. She says, I'm afraid. I was raped by 2 guys in the laundry room, and I've been afraid to go down there. We can choose to judge Mary, or we can choose compassion. And there's a whole community of people like Mary and like Jim who are being judged and misunderstood. And I know why I'm drawn to this work and to this community. I know what it's like to be embarrassed, ashamed, and afraid, just like they are. One night, when I was 19, I was a statistic. Teenage pregnancy, unwed mother. To make matters even more dramatic, I had twins. To make matters even more dramatic, the father of the twins is Black. We lived in rural Texas, and he was abusive. One night, I felt like a scene out of a movie. I found myself trying to escape from Texas to Denver on a Greyhound bus. I had 2 babies, 6 months old, 1 diaper bag, and 500 miles to go for safety. I'm shaking and I'm afraid, and the pain of trying to hold back my tears in public felt like someone trying to choke me. The babies don't know what's going on. They can't understand it, but they completely sense and feel my fear, and they won't stop crying. And everyone on the bus is frustrated. They can't sleep. I'm ruining their trip. And it's only making it worse. And then out of nowhere comes a man. He's dressed in army fatigues, and he just says, "Can I help?" He sits down next to me. He takes one of the babies, and she immediately stops crying, and she falls asleep. And then he takes the other baby, and she immediately stops crying and goes to sleep. But I don't remember his name. The words, this is what I remember him saying. He says, "Your babies are beautiful. I'm headed home to see my wife, and she is Black. And if we have babies, they may be as beautiful as yours." And I remember that moment 25 years ago. That moment, it changed the course of my life. He could have judged me like those on the bus. He chose compassion. It's a choice. We can either choose to judge hoarding disorder, or we can choose compassion, because judgment and shame perpetuates this illness. So just remember, next time you call someone a hoarder, it's not who they are. Look beyond the clutter. They are intelligent and creative and funny and generous. They are college professors, engineers, artists, and entrepreneurs, just like you and I. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure I have some strong reactions to that video. And so I'm going to do a couple more slides, and then maybe we'll take some Q&A if there's nothing really pressing in the chat. So when we're talking about a person who tends to hoard, all we're seeing is like the iceberg. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. You might see the things that they're saving, or the things that they're acquiring, or the things that are producing a lot of the clutter. But what is underneath that? As she was explaining, how does someone get there? How did that happen? Again, it could be family history, neurobiology, their mental health issues, sometimes physical health, executive functioning, trauma or loss, and then also memory. So again, as we look at the person, we need to look underneath what's underneath that iceberg. How does someone get there, and how can we begin to help? And if you learn nothing else today, but just that compassion and empathy, that's really the beginning. So, in able to do that, we need to start changing the language. You know, we've all heard these words, you know, person who's a smelly, or they're a pack rat, or they're a dumpster diver, or they're dirty, they're messy, they're hoarders, you know, and persons who tend to hoard, we want to use first person language. Persons who tend to hoard does not like the label hoarder, because when you think about it, what would you say about a person who has cancer? What words would you use to describe that person? And I've often heard, wow, what a survivor. That's my hero. They really got their act together, how they going through life, even with the cancer. But not so much with persons either with a mental illness or a person who has a hoarding disorder. And so as we begin to change that language, you wouldn't hear, if you saw someone coming down the street, oh my God, here comes cancer. Oh my God, here comes the person. Well, you wouldn't say, you would say the person, but here comes diabetes. We wouldn't say that. And so neither should we say that here comes a hoarder. It's a person who may have a hoarding disorder. First person language. Often that's the difference between whether someone will or will not get help. It's the language that you use to refer to them. So some of the language changing, a person with too much stuff, or a person living with hoarding disorder. That is a more kinder or gentler way to describe someone. Or what about a collector or a historian? Or that they're very creative. A person who has a tendency to have too much stuff, they see things and they see the world differently. And I'm often amazed at what they see and how they can use something that we would think is just trash or garbage. And so again, looking at the creativity of that person and perhaps even asking, well, what do you plan to do with that? So how do you speak with someone? Well, first of all, you should gather some information about that person and maybe even ask the question, has anyone ever expressed concern about your safety due to the volume of possessions in your home? Or do you have any concern over the number of items in your home? You also can be able to ask ways to recommend support, like, you know what, I'm so concerned about you. Did you know there are a lot of people who struggle with stuff? Or would you consider letting someone help you with your stuff? And then also share with them there are research ways to help you. Let people know they are not alone. They are not by themselves. And some of those best practices are cognitive behavioral treatment models. You have harm reduction. You have groups, support groups, educational workshops, buried in treasures. And that's a workshop that I actually will be starting next Wednesday virtually. And I'll give you a little more information about that as well. But again, there are, and there are also home-based services and case management available. So again, if you could probably hook someone up to some mental health services as well, helping to help them discard or maintain their home in a safer manner, I think that would be very helpful. And another approach you may be able to ask, you can ask the question like, could I put a grocery bag on your kitchen dining room table counter? Or can a stretcher easily come through your front door? Give them a visual, give them something to think about before, again, we start using some of the negativity that is so often associated with persons who tend to have too much stuff. Oh, dear. Okay.
Laverne,
Yes, ma'am.
I have some comments and questions before you move on, if that's okay. I'd
Oh,
love to.
absolutely.
Awesome. So the video was so powerful, and that issue of language is really important, and it's kind of reflected in some of the comments and questions. I would
Okay.
to share one question that and a word for word from an anonymous attendee that's just so beautifully written. My sister, a senior, has these challenges. She is a caring and selfless person, but lives in fear of visits to her home by repair people or family. Many rooms are stuffed as it's a basement and a garage. She refuses help and isolates. What can be done to make her more comfortable in getting assistance? So I love the way that question was asked, and I think some of your suggestions reflect it. And there were a couple of other questions about that. How do I help my loved one who is so resistant to getting help? What suggestions you have?
And again, I think the video covered quite a few of them. Just being compassionate, not non-judgmental, not coming in with your own thoughts and ideas, because again, that's that person's life. I like to tell people, everybody's bottom is different. My bottom may not be your bottom, and your bottom may not be my bottom, but it's the bottom, and everyone's different. And so again, it's almost, to me, I liken it to having a cold. You know, you could have a runny nose, or I can have a sore throat, or my eyes may be watering. It's still a cold. So if persons are having too much stuff, what is it that that person's going through? Dig under that iceberg, see where they're coming from. And if you come in with compassion, you come in non-judgmental, ask them, how can I help you? What would you like me to do? And even sometimes saying nothing, just sitting with the person is helpful, because then you will be able to have buy-in, because you're not coming in with a you come in with I statements. What can I do? I've seen to notice, it looks like to me. Then you are becoming more in tune with what that person is feeling. And I will follow up on this a little bit later when we're done with the Q&A, because when we do this case study, I think I'd love to hear the responses that people will come up with at the end of this presentation. Lynn, was there anything else? Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. That was great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now this is a clutter image rating. And also you can see on the side here, let me just move my screen here. The clutter image rating is a pictorial tool to determine the amount of clutter in a person's home. So the pictures are numbered from 1, which equals no clutter, to 9, severe clutter. And for the 3 main rooms, the kitchen, living room, and bedroom, and a typical home. So we'll ask, in your mind, please select the number of the picture that most closely matches the level of clutter in each room that you are rating. Human service professionals and clients often use this instrument to assess each room in a home. So just in your mind, think about what it is that the house looks like. Now, the difference is oftentimes this tool is used because what a person who tends to have too much stuff may not see it that way. You might pick a number 6 and they see a number 1. But it's also used to determine, if you choose a specific number, where would you like to be in 6 months? Which picture would you like to be? Well, if you're a 9 and you chose number 8, believe it or not, that is progress. It's step by step, little by little. And so we often, this is crucial that we use this for persons to be able to determine what it is that they're experiencing. Okay. So what's next? Give me a second. This is also one of the tools that are used in a risk assessment. So one could be for health. And the persons will answer these questions such as, You cannot use the bathtub or the shower, or you cannot access the toilet, or you have a garbage or trash that overflows. And they will check off some of these items to see what their risk assessment will end up being. I mean, look at some of this stuff. The presence of spoiled food. You cannot locate medications or equipment. You have the presence of insects or rodents, presence of mold or chronic mildew. And then we go to Moscow. I love this, the acronym homes. Then obstacles. You cannot move freely or safely in a home. You have unstable piles that could cause an avalanche. Your egress and your exits or vents are blocked or unusable. And we've had a lot of issues in terms of persons who are living in the senior citizens buildings, because oftentimes people downsize. And when they downsize, they try to cram everything that they had in their home into their apartment, which is obviously much smaller. And so by the time the yearly inspections come around, they're in critical danger of maybe losing their homes or being evicted because of such clutter. So there are a lot of issues, and I'm sure we're not going to cover everything in this little time we have together, but I just wanted to give you enough food for thought. So see how we can take this further. Then under mental health, we talked a little bit about that, does not seem to understand the seriousness of the problem. And oftentimes people do not. Again, their bottom may not be what you see as their bottom, and they may not see this as a threat. And oftentimes persons have been to court and have lost their spouses or their children. And you would think to yourself, if someone is in that state where they will lose their spouse or their children and still will not clean up their home, that's an issue. People are not doing that because they just want to have stuff. There are underlying reasons. And if you don't dig at it and find out what the source is, we can be going, this can be a perpetual movement of cleaning out, acquiring again, cleaning out and acquiring again. So I think we covered that earlier. I also want to go through endangerment, the threat to health or safety of a child or a minor, a threat to health or safety of a person with a disability. Just imagine someone who's in a wheelchair and there's just a very small path to get through to the next room. That's a threat. Or a threat to a neighbor with a common wall if they're living in a home or an apartment. And then safety and structure, the unstable floorboards. Sometimes persons' homes are so crowded with stuff, papers and things, that the walls and or the floors have collapsed underneath them. And then sometimes there's no running water, or the electrical outlets or cords are exposed, or they can't get to them at all. So again, this is a scale that's been used pretty successfully in the beginning treatment of someone who tends to have too much stuff. And then also, this is page 2, how many people are in the home, the ages, what are the risk measurements, and then capacity measurements. So this 2-pager multidisciplinary home risk assessment is the beginning use of how do we begin to start recognizing how we can be helpful to someone who tends to have too much stuff. All right now I'm going to click on, and I'll give you a few minutes for this. This is a case scenario. I'll read it, digest it, and then I want your opinions. So Mary's history of trauma, compulsive acquiring, and difficulty discarding of her possessions has resulted in a clutter-filled home. She has experienced social isolation due to embarrassment about others seeing her home. Even Mary's adult children who live locally are not invited to visit. Mary invites you to visit her home. And after weeks of reschedules, because it does happen, and cancellations, you finally arrive at Mary's front door. You knock and wait for several minutes. Mary finally answers the door. It's clear she's anxious. She comes outside and spends about 15 minutes talking to you on her front steps. When she finally invites you in, she grabs her chest, she gasps and says, "Okay, welcome to the house of a hoarder." As you enter the home, You are surrounded by mountains of stuff, but you've made it aside. So my questions are, what are the initial questions you would want to ask Mary to build rapport and demonstrate understanding? So I'm gonna give you a few moments to kind of digest that. And then if you would put your answers into the chat, then we can go further. So I'll give you a few moments to do that.
Into the Q&A, Laverne. I just want to comment and haven't put it in the Q&A. The chat's disabled.
Yes. I'm sorry, Q&A, I'm sorry.
That's We have a bunch of comments, Laverne, a bunch of
I'm
questions.
sure we would. That's great.
We ready? Okay, I have the
Okay.
first question is, hi, Mary. Why did you invite me here today?
Excellent question. Okay. There's no right or wrong here, or maybe some better ones, but so far so good. One for one.
I would ask Mary, how are you doing today?
Very non-threatening. Okay. Next.
What happened to you, Mary?
Very good.
Okay. Mary, are you feeling safe?
Great question. All right. I think that people are getting it.
Is there anything you'd like to change to help you be more comfortable in your home?
Perfect.
I'm concerned about your welfare and well-being, Mary. What is one thing you would like me to do to start to help you?
Very good. Turn it around to yourself.
You have a lot of nice things here. So do I, but we probably don't need it all. Would you like to do a garage sale with me? I would not want her to feel bad.
I like it.
What is something about your home that makes you happy?
Great question.
Another one is, I would thank her for allowing me into her personal space. I would ask her to give me a tour to get an idea of what she feels is the most important room in her house.
Great.
Yeah. How are you feeling today? Focus maybe on her hair, dress, or anything you can see that's positive. Ask her about her children or grandchildren. Ask about her friends. Okay. What type of things do you tend to save? Let's see.
Great. Because you may get a lot of insight from that one as well. Great.
Yeah, let's see. I would ask her if she lived alone for a long time. When did you start accumulating the items? So you said, welcome, the home of a hoarder. What do you mean by that? What do you see when you look into your home from the front door?
Good insight.
I love this one. Thank you for showing me this, Mary. I understand that may have been difficult for you. Can I help in any way?
Empathy at its best.
Empathy.
Thank you.
Beautiful. It's good to meet you. I'd like to help. How is your situation?
Nice.
Let's see. It looks like you're a great collector. Would you like help sorting out your collection?
Nice. Very affirming.
Yeah. Wow. Is there a place we can sit and talk? Assuming I know the information, I probably start out with the issue of being able to have our adult children visit. Let's see. A few more. I would kindly say, what a collection. What has the most special meaning to you? Everybody likes it. Oh, this is a nice one. I'm so glad our visit has finally happened.
Yes, perfect.
Where would you like to start?
Wow, what a great group.
Yeah, well, here's one more. I understand, Mary. I have the same problem. We need help. Maybe we can get help together.
Nice.
And then I like this one too. You're very brave to let me in. Nice. Okay. And thank you for inviting me and trusting me to come. Here's another one. You know there are 15 million people whose home looks like this as well. You're not alone. Take a deep breath.
Wow, how affirming is that one? Okay.
Yeah. And then one more here. Are there activities you'd like to do in your home that you're not able to do with the current conditions?
Great question.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Great. There's a lot.
Wow.
Awesome.
I'm really excited. You guys really have hit the mark,
Yeah.
much more so than I'd hoped for.
Awesome.
So just kind of piggyback a little bit. So some of the questions could be, if I can't use this, who can? Or if this is you, do I have a home for this? Because if you don't have a place for it, maybe that's not what you need. And do I need this? And do I have more than one? Oftentimes, and again, we find that persons who tend to have too much stuff really are very, very generous people. They really believe that a lot of persons believe that I'm getting this because I know somebody will use it at some point. Now, sometimes it doesn't often make it to the other person's home, but that is the intent. And that's a lot of times why people tend to have too much stuff. So some of the questions, you could ask, so how long has it been since someone has been here? And then, as most of you said, commend her for letting you in. So how many rooms do you have? How is your house laid out? Do you have 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, a sunroom, a four car, 2-story garage, 2 sheds? How many rooms? And then also, why are you willing to work on this now? Because that's identify the motivator. Because if you can identify that, that would be very helpful. So again, just getting in is a great coup, but always remember that you are still a guest in Mary's house. That's her home. That's where she lives. And her inviting you in says a lot. So just so you know with this was an actual case. As of today, Mary has stopped acquiring and is actively working on sorting and discarding. She has actually cleared out her back porch, her laundry room, kitchen and dining room. Now she still has setbacks, but her victories absolutely now outweigh others. So I'm very happy to share that story. That is a true story. So people can and will be helped if they're willing to do the work, if you're willing to be in their life, if you're willing to be helpful and non-judgmental and just being there for them. All right, so I wanted to share, this out the way, that there are some groups, and this is the workshop I was talking about that I'll be starting next week with our Atlantic County office. It's called Buried in Treasures. It's an extensive 16-week action-oriented workshop, and it's centered around building long-term skills and strategies around hoarding and disorder, around hoarding disorder. This workshop is designed by Lee Shurer and Dr. Randy Frost to complement the Buried in Treasures, Help for Compulsive Acquiring, Saving, and Hoarding. This is the actual book that we use, Buried in Treasures, that we use through the 16-week sessions with a journal. I was actually trained by Lee Shurer. I think it was 2014 to become a Buried in Treasure workshop facilitator. But this book you can purchase if you're just interested, just to go through it. It gives you a lot of tips. Now, obviously, it's much easier to go through the 16-week sessions with a group. But if you're just interested in getting more and knowing more information, you can always get this, purchase this book. And it is extremely, extremely helpful, I thought. So again, if you're interested, the Buried in Treasures group, I don't know if there's many others doing this in New Jersey. We actually copy rolled this out from Boston, and we've been running groups, particularly in our Atlantic County office, for at least 4 years now. I think it's we're going on our 15th group workshop. Okay, so again, Buried Treasures is the name of the book. And then it really hones in on how to sort and discard. A lot of emphasis is placed on helping participants learn sorting, discarding, and developing organizational systems and strategies for reducing acquisition, understand their reasons for saving, and untangle the complex emotions tied to the objects collected. So we ask people, one of the exercises is to, as we get further into the group, what would you like to keep? What do you think you might want to keep? And what is the pile that you're going to use that you're definitely going to discard? And I want you to think about, at this point, one of your most prized possessions. And how would you feel about someone asking you to give it up? What would that feel like to you? So just take a moment and visualize it. Because we often make decisions as well. I know I do. I used to have a lot of clothes, but pandemic has now shown me that what are you going to do with those clothes? Because where are you going to wear them? And so I am busily putting bundles together to give to the Salvation Army and to the vets. So again, when we're talking about discarding, some of us, it's very hard for us to get rid of things as well. So we need to perhaps cut a person who tends to have too much stuff a break and just realize that, there but by the grace, it could be God. Okay. Okay. I want to end almost with, this is our season. I just want to give a plug. Voting is essential. It matters. And when you're looking before you vote, if you have not done so, look at the mental health platforms that some of your politicians are standing on. How do they stand on racism or employment or equality or housing? All of these things matter, and you matter. So please make sure you vote. Voter registration deadline is October 5th. The first day of early voting is October 19th. The last day of early voting is October 30th. And then the general election day is November 3rd. So please, ma'am, please, sir, please make sure you vote. It's important in such a time as this. This is actually the website of the Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They have a complete directory. So if you would click on this link, you will be able to download their PDF. It encompasses the state of New Jersey and what's available. And what I will send to Lynn or some local resources, I have it here. I didn't include it, but I'm going to make sure that you have it. And then she can put it up on the website or either email it out to you. So it has local resources and national resources. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my time. And now I will open the floor for any Q&A you might have. Thank you so much for all your attention.
Wow. Thank you, Laverne. There are a lot of people on our webinar today, and I am so glad you left a lot of time because we've been getting questions throughout the webinar, and I'm sure we will have more. So we'll try to get through as many as we can on this. So,
okay.
So I'm just going to start. They may challenging to group some of them together because there's so many of them, which is awesome. I have a family member who saves, and if I don't stay on top of things, it becomes impossible. It doesn't fit all the criteria of hoarding, and a psychiatric professional believes it's not a problem. What do you suggest?
I'm sorry, she said,
So the family, they're saying, I guess it's a matter of perception. Is it really a hoarding disorder? The psychiatric person does not believe it's meets
got
the
it.
criteria, yet she's working really hard as a family member to have to manage their loved ones' issues and stuff.
Just keep in mind that there's not always an answer for everything. But also, I think that the bottom line to whether a person is experiencing a hoarding disorder is the intended use for the room not being met. So, for example, maybe someone may have too much stuff where they can't use the toilet, or they can't use the basin, or they can't use the bathtub. It may be too much stuff if that's the case, but if they're still able to use the room for what it is intended, sometimes we just have to turn a blind eye. I mean, that may not be very helpful because as helpers want to see things differently. But again, until that person gets the help, and if the mental health professional is saying that they don't think it's a disorder, another option could be for you to go to another professional. Just like I said earlier, going to a doctor. If you are not satisfied with what you are hearing or knowing or feeling, there are many others. Just like medications, some medications work for some doesn't work for others. So again, maybe you need to go to another mental health professional to see where that lies. And again, unless that person is willing to do the work, sometimes you just have to wait.
So true. Thank you. Could the fear of missing out and lack of income during this pandemic also be reasons for hoarding?
Absolutely. Again, there are so many reasons. Oftentimes, persons who were born during the Depression, they still save things. My mom was not a classic person who tended to hoard, but I remember, before she passed away, I remember going over and she was rinsing out paper plates, not the paper ones, but the ones that had the plastic coating on it. And I thought, oh my goodness. I said, Mom, you really can afford other plates. I'll buy you some of that. Oh, no. But in her mind, and I got it. In her mind, I just had maybe a piece of toast on it. Wasn't bad. I just rinsed it off and let it dry. It didn't soak through. The plate wasn't soggy, so she could absolutely reuse it again. Was that a fight I wanted to take up? No, I didn't. I left it alone. Just an insight.
I hear you. Okay. This is a common one I've heard from loved ones. The accumulation. How does the accumulation of papers, records, statements relate to this? Organizing paperwork is a challenge and often becomes too much stuff and clutter.
Yeah, again, persons who tend to have too much stuff, they want to see it right in front of them because they've often said they forget. If I put it away or I file it away, I may forget I have it. What may be helpful is to have them, most people now have a cell phone with a camera. And if you're having difficulty getting rid of or thinking you will not remember things, take a picture of it. Take a picture of it, and that will be helpful to then maybe pass it on. If it's something that you really like, but you're not using, if you haven't used it in a year, 6 months or a year, probably not. But you don't, if you give it away, to remember it by is to take a picture, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you. I see one question here and another one that really relates, that somebody says, I used to be a pack rat when I was younger, but now I'm OCD. Everything is neat, orderly, and not out of place. Is that troublesome? I'm kind of worrying about, am I showing symptoms? And I see another question. Somebody works with adolescents, and the adolescents are worried that they're starting to show tendencies and are going to advance to this hoarding. Are there any kind of warning, precursor, preemptive actions that one can take?
But even that Holmes risk assessment, that could be the beginning, because that may send a message, based on what that reveals. So that's a starting place.
Okay, good, thanks. And I see a lot of questions about, and you talked it in the beginning and about the person with the disorder, but, we are also looking at the impact on the family and the struggles. And I see questions about, what can help that family member, whether it be the spouse. There's a lot of elderly people, as you mentioned. What about the adult children and all the struggles with their loved one? Do you have any input to that?
Again, there are some services available, and my best suggestion would just be to reach out to some of the services and see what would best fit your needs, because there's so many different ones and people operate differently, but there are some services available. So if you go and download the manual from the Division of Health and Addiction Services, that plus the local resources, I think as you begin to start doing some of the homework and looking at what's available and what can be done, I think you'll be able to have a better idea, as opposed to me, like I said, I don't recommend any one thing, but mental health, behavioral health therapy, and other organizations that deal specifically with this type of disorder.
I see some people specifically about the workshop that you mentioned are eager and they want to know how to sign up for that.
Feel free to email me, L. Williams at MHANJ.org. That's L. Williams at M as in Mary, H as in Harry, A as in Apple, N as in New, J as in Jersey. So it stands for Mental Health Association, New Jersey. L. Williams at MHANJ.org. I'll be happy to answer your questions offline. And then when we start the next group, I'll be happy to give you information. We are starting next Wednesday at 10 o'clock. It'll be every Wednesday, barring the holidays, but from 10 in the morning until 12, 2 hours every Wednesday. The cost is $125. And just contact me and we'll see how we can work it out. If you're available to start next week, I would need you to contact me in the next day or so, because I would need to get you your book and your journal.
And it's a Zoom presentation.
Yes, it's virtual, so it actually is working out pretty well, because I used to run a Too Much Stuff group in Union County even before COVID, and then I wanted to do the Buried and Treasured up north, but it was just myself. And so having to travel back and forth to Atlantic County was a little cumbersome. Now we're able to do it all over the state. So yes, it is virtual. It's 2 hours every Wednesday from 10 to 12. And if you email me, I'll get you the information that you're looking for. And if not this one, then we will be running groups throughout the year. So
great. Thank you. Somebody talks about this is, during the presentation and the suggestions about donating items. It makes people easier to let go of things. But this person mentioned something really interesting, that everywhere she contacts, places are not taking things or have closed during the pandemic. Any suggestions on resources?
Yeah, places are opening up again. I know at one point, I know lupus is picking up. And I believe the veterans have started back again as well. I can't vouch for the others. I'm not sure about the Salvation Army, but I know lupus is, and so are the veterans.
And that's great. They'll come right to your house and pick it up. You just put it on the curb tag. So
on the curb, tag it, and then they'll also give you a tax deductible receipt.
Great. Let's see. My older sister lives far away. We're unable to visit her. She lives alone, does not drive, rents from an older senior. There have been many hurts, rejections, losses in her life. She accumulates and has put up a wall emotionally. How can I help?
Again, depending on where she lives or what's available in that town or township or county. Again, you have to do a little more research. And they are places that will come out and help. Because again, persons who tend to hoard are very sensitive. It's their things. And if you're not understanding of number one, the first person language, how to even enter the home, gain entree, or even just to make that person feel comfortable enough to start talking to you about it. That's the first step. Find out what's available in the area, find out what would be helpful, that she would like, see what she wants to start. And then see what company is available in that area to do so.
Okay. Here's a comment, a really powerful comment. Hello, thank you so much for doing this presentation. I'm a person who has a lot of stuff, way too much stuff, to be honest. I've already lost my children and most of my original possessions and have been evicted from 2 apartments due to it. I currently live with my dad and I have a 1-bedroom and have found myself in the same situation of having accumulated too much stuff. Fortunately, my dad is not putting me out. I started to clean out my closet 2 weeks ago. I've donated 3 bags worth of clothes and shoes. I still have 1 box of stuff to donate. However, there's still an excess of random possessions that I have a hard time parting with. Nevertheless, I'm working toward letting go. This presentation has helped me be able to put my emotion into words, and I have much better understanding of what I'm actually growing through so it doesn't get completely out of hand again. It has also provided the roadmap that I need to finally be free. Oh, get tears.
Oh, my work is done, people. My work here is done. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that testimonial. That's encouraging. So thank you so much. And good luck to you. Best wishes to you.
That's awesome. So nice to hear. Let's see. We have another comment. Thank you for your helpful insights. I believe starting problem solving with an attitude of compassion will set the stage for a successful relationship. Again, I'm very grateful for your wise guidance.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow.
Oh, that's
excellent. You were a great group. You asked the questions, and every facilitator presenter's nightmare is crickets. So thank you so much for helping me stay on track by asking the questions that others wanted to hear, and then just staying being interested. So thank you so much.
Yeah, they're still coming, Laverne here. Okay, and some more good comments here. Yes, if you use words like donate or recycle, it may be easier for the person to let go of excess item. Terms like throw out and get rid of may be what we feel like saying, but it can be hurtful.
Excellent. I like excellent. That's exactly right. First person language and compassionate language. Yes.
Mm-hmm. My therapist has discussed with me, I have a lot of clutter and that I keep a lot of stuff that's sentimental to me. I have a hard time getting rid of things. Your slide on why people save, the one with I better save it, I might need it, I could really relate to that slide. My basement and time to go through the stuff is my problem. I've been concerned I had a problem, and this webinar has provided me with a lot of excellent information. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Appreciate it.
That's great.
Appreciate your honesty and your candidness as well.
Yeah, and again, people asking for clean out services. I think you said you had a list of resources we're going
Yes.
to send
You
out.
want to send that? I'll send that to you as soon as we get off of you. Do you have email? People had to sign up, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's going to be on the website, but I will email this to Lynn, and then Lynn can email it out to y'all.
I believe, let me check and see if we can do that, or we can maybe put a link up on the web with the webinar where we'll do that, but we'll make sure that we.
Sure. And I'll make sure you get this, as soon as we end this session, I will get this information to you.
And Laverne, you and I had spoken when we were talking about this webinar earlier in the week, and maybe we could just discuss a little bit some of the real stigma and how we break those barriers. Shows like Hoarders and Buried Alive, it's so hurtful that people are watching it almost as a form of entertainment and
Mhm.
spectacle, and you know, how do we address that? I like the fact that we're looking at it as an illness and a disorder and separating it. In NAMI, we always talk about separating the illness from the individual. So
Right,
if you could speak a
right.
little bit about the impact of that.
Um, I think, like I said earlier, when we talk about person with a mental illness, some of the derogatory terms being used are they're crazy or they're nuts. I mean, these are terms that people use, which are very hurtful. And that's why a lot of persons who may have some emotional challenge will not go for help. But when we talk about persons who have cancer, we call them a survivor, that they're strong and they're wonderful. And so, I mean, that first person language and you know what, when we are around or with people who are using such derogatory language or just have such judgmental feelings, it's up to all of us who are on this call to say, you might want to think twice about that. Have you ever thought of, and just begin the conversation. That's how you move it. That's how you change it.
Thank you. That's so true. I think if anybody has any more questions, I see here's a comment that East Brunswick is having a clothing drive. If anybody wants, that's a good
Wow.
source. Yeah. All right. I've learned so much from the great webinar. Any other questions that we have? You still have a chance to type them in. All right. All right. I think this was an absolutely awesome presentation, and it really, I encourage people to, what a link that you had with NAMI. We talk about many of the concepts that you've talked about today, and being non-judgmental and showing that empathy, and we're reinforcing all these concepts today. If anything else, Laverne, that you'd like to address? All right.
No, my closing comments are, be mindful that the holidays are coming up, and that could be very triggering for some persons who tend to have too much stuff, because perhaps they really would like to have company for the holidays, and they know they can't because they probably would not be uh, ready to entertain at that point. But just let them know you're thinking about them, and if there's anything you can do. I think, again, just going in with that non-judgmental, caring, empathy feeling, letting them know that, do you think there's an issue? Stop beginning to ask the questions, not accusatory, but just begin to reach out and be okay to not be okay with it, because everyone's different and everybody's bottom is different, and they may be ready when you least expect it. But if you still always let them know that you're available, you hear them, you want to be there for them, eventually when you think they're not hearing you, that may be the time to just say, hey, you know what? I think I'm ready. So I'll leave you with, get more information. You can never have enough. And hopefully NAMI will be able to put on other things like this to keep you all well informed. And I just want to thank everyone for their participation. Thank Lynn and the NAMI New Jersey and NAMI Sussex for allowing me to be part of this, and stay well.
Ms. Williams, thank you so much for joining us today and your wonderful, very interactive presentation. It was so important. It's okay, before we close the webinar, I would like to share some information on NAMI New Jersey. If I can find, just a minute here. Bear with me. And I'm having internet issues. Here we go. I encouraged everybody. Can we see my screen? We good? We see the NAMI New Jersey? Awesome. I encourage you to get involved with NAMI. If you go to our website and click on be a member, you can get involved. With that being said, though, our services are always free. I'd like to show you where you can find out about our services right now. If you go to our homepage and you click on how to access NAMI New Jersey services, you can see we have our online support groups going. We have our local affiliate online support groups, and we also have multicultural programs that you are more than welcome to participate. They're offering online support groups as well. We have our NAMI signature presentations where you can get the services. And you can also see where the webinar page, we will be, oh, I'm sorry, I clicked my page, but we will be posting the recording of this webinar on our webinar slide here that you will see. So thank you again for sharing this hour and a little bit over an hour with us today. As a reminder, it would be appreciated if you could complete the survey at the end of this webinar so we can incorporate your feedback for future webinars. Feel free to reach out to NAMI New Jersey for any support you might need, or you can contact Laverne. She gave her email out if you need any specific services that she has mentioned today. And then this concludes our webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.